Assalamu alaikum, family. Welcome to another episode of Nationtown TV Live. We have a jam-packed episode for you today. We're going to actually deal with a few topics, but let me go ahead and start off in the proper fashion. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is but one God who appeared to us in the person of Master Father Muhammad just about 89 years ago, July 1930, July 4th to be exact. I further bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, to be right and exact and down to the modern times. And he is at least the messenger of Allah, but in fact, the exalted Christ. And I would not be able to tell you anything about those two great men if it were not for this beautiful brother just over my shoulder, none other than the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And in those three great names, I greet you in the words of peace. We say it in the Arabic language, our original language. I said our original language of the Aboriginal people. In that language, we greet you with the words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. Dear family, I want to start off and just hit the ground running. We don't have a whole lot of time, but we do have a whole lot of topics. As always, we're going to start off with our final call cover story. And as always, it is a major issue, whether we realize it or not. We are dealing with the cover story, dealing with Flint, Michigan, which has become a forgotten story in America, but also in the black community. And that's a little unfortunate. But basically what we have is a situation where justice, not that anybody was really convinced that there would be any substantial justice, but justice is of course delayed and of course denied, as it seems to always turn out that way when you're dealing with the Aboriginal people of this earth here in America. But essentially, criminal charges were brought up against city officials, even some state officials, local officials. These are elected officials as well, and those criminal charges were dropped. I'm just going to read a small excerpt on this, but this is a serious issue, and we wanted to make sure that we touched on it before we got any other issues today. But this is actually a article written by our brother Brian 18X Crawford, another great writer for the #1 news, not controlled by the Jews. But basically, here's the gist of it. About 100 people filed into UAW Local 659 Hall in Flint, Michigan, to get a formal update and explanation as to why the new team of prosecutors dropped all criminal charges against city and state officials who had a hand in creating the worst ecological disasters to affect black people in this country in recent memory, probably since the Tuskegee experiment, as well as other experiments that haven't been exposed the way Tuskegee has. You can throw HIV/AIDS in there, you can throw some forms of cancer in there, you can throw a few things in there, but definitely since Tuskegee. But Flint resident, oh, excuse me, that's a caption on the photo. But the officials showed up on a Friday, June 28th, to talk to Flint residents who have been without clean and safe drinking water for more than 5 years. And that's just an excerpt of that wonderfully written and very in-depth article in the Final Call News. This is a forgotten story. It's a story that we talked about when it made news, and then it kind of went away. I have to tip my bow tie to the Final Call News, because this is also one of those stories that the Final Call was on prior to anyone else, and they stayed on it. And as you can see, even though the so-called mainstream media is not on it, the Final Call stays on it. They deal with news as it affects us, not whether or not, you know, it's what everybody is talking about. Now, some people might think that that's not good business. That, you know, there should be always a cover story that makes you want to buy the paper. But that's what the FOI is for. That's why we go out there in the streets armed with this #1 news, not controlled by the Jews, so we can do hand-to-hand combat, so to speak, with falsehood and deal with our people and touch them and let them know what's going on. And I also want to remind all the top flight FOI out there to make sure you're reading your copies of the Final Call. I don't care if you pushing 400 or 500 a week. Make sure you take 15 minutes to read the cover article, go through each page just to make sure that you know what the contents are of your newspaper, so we can actually push that as we push the paper, not just putting it in their hand, but just letting them know what's in there and why it's important. But the interesting thing about this topic, Flint, which has been an issue for 5 years, as I just read, is that last week, and actually twice in the last couple of months, one issue that's been in the mainstream news and political news has been reparations. And we've been pushing a hard line on that. You have brothers who have been, brothers and sisters who have been, debating back and forth on that issue as to reparations and if we'll ever get it. And you have different takes on reparations, different organizations going at each other's necks. And what's interesting about that is that how can we expect reparations from the same construct, the same people who won't even give us clean water? Clean water. Usually when you go into any building, any house, any apartment, the one thing that's usually running in there is water. You would think water, given that it's such a natural aspect of life and of earth, hell, 3/4 of the human body is water. 3/4 of your brain, water. You would think that would just be a fundamental right. So we dealing with a government, local, state, and federal, that doesn't even give a damn about giving us fresh water. But we think they're gonna cut a $50 trillion check for reparations, one of the greatest crimes, if not the greatest crime ever committed in the last 6,000 years. But we think, they're gonna cut that check when they won't even give us clean water. And remember what I said last week. I said, how could you expect a man that breaks or destroys everything he touches to repair you? Everything he touches, he breaks and or destroys. But how is he going to repair us? And this is just an example. He touches the water and he destroys it. The water and he destroys it. And it brings to mind an actual ayat in the Holy Quran. I'm going to bring that up real quick. First of all, shout out to all the Nation Town family out there checking in. Feel free to go ahead and hit us up, comments, questions. We may bring it up, we may not, we may answer. Just keep in mind that we want to keep it on topic, and we want your questions, we want your comments, but as long as they're on topic and they actually make sense, and it's not just being argumentative for the sake of being argumentative, but actually has some kind of substance to it. Here on Nation Town TV, Nation Town is, we do believe in freedom, justice, and equality, but this is not a democracy, especially not the kind of democracy that this white man then tricked you into believing is real. But as you can see, we have an ayat from the Holy Quran on the screen. This is from Surah 30. And this is ayat 41, ayat, a verse, loosely translated from English into English. Ayat means verse, loosely translated. But Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, I'm going to read this ayat from the Holy Quran. It says, corruption has appeared in the land and the sea on account of what the hands of men have wrought. I'm going to say that again. On account of what the hands of men have wrought, that he may make them taste a part of that which they have done, so that they may return. Now, when you first read that, you first heard me read that, first thing that may have come to your mind, oh yeah, it's talking about the white man. You can look at it from that angle, but you can also look at it at us. In the Bible, it also talks about, us not partaking in this world. unless we also partake in its plagues. If you partake in this world, you're going to have to deal with its plagues too. Now, I'm not blaming our people for what's going on in Flint. It's an absolute atrocity. But at some point, when you're dealing with a wicked people, you have to not only expect their wickedness, but you also at some point need to be prepared, and at some point you also have to make, the necessary changes. Now, there's been a lot of black people who have moved out of Flint, Michigan, because of this. And it's a lot of our people that are stuck in Flint, Michigan, because listen, when you're in poverty, abject poverty, just getting up and leaving is just not an option. That's why we, going back to not just reparation, but also separation, we have to understand that separation has to be first mental before it's physical or geographical, and that's just a financial reality, because you got people who can't afford to go to the next zip code, go to the next town, move to the next state. But, we talking about going to Africa, or going to this place or that place. We have to be prepared to change what's between our ears, because our enemy does not change. He will not change. He cannot be formed. We can bring him around us if he studies for a certain amount of time, 30 plus years, studies the nature of righteousness, and maybe we won't kill him as quick as we normally would. That's in our lessons of the Nation of Islam, but he cannot be reformed. And the honest truth is, a lot of us are sitting around waiting on this new and improved, reformed white man. How we stand in line waiting on those new Jordans to come out, new iPhone. And that iPhone is the same iPhone that came out last year. It just got a couple of little gadgets to it. And then you can see brothers standing outside waiting on new infrared Jordans to come out. They're really Jordans that initially came out about 30 years ago. And, and they're basically the same shoes made in the same factories in the same ghettos of Asia. But you find that situation pretty much the same, given the fact that that this white man cannot be reformed. Just keep an eye on things, general orders in full effect. But dear family, this is what's going on, and please get this copy of the Final Call News, and let's keep Flint on the forefront of our minds, and let's not wait when it comes to any news, not just reparations, not just when certain things are happening. Let's just make sure that we're not sitting around waiting on our open enemy and his outlets, his news outlets, to let us know what's going on. But real quick, dear family, we're going to pause for just a moment to just check on something real quick. 1 second.
He's moving along now.
Brother Denard.
Oh, okay.
All right. It's all good, family. Just checking on some things, making sure that, security ramifications are intact here at Muhammad Mosque number 27. But as I was saying, dear family, Flint is no longer in the forefront of our enemy's news cycle, but we got to make sure all issues dealing with us, they remain on the forefront, whether our enemy wants to talk about it or not. First of all, shout out to everybody chiming in. We got Brother Hisham Collins, Assalamu alaikum, Brother Kevin X. Taylor, Wa alaikum salam, soldier. He says, Allah is God. That's right. The NOI is the Nation of Islam. The FOI is the name of the military training given to the men who belong to Islam in North America. That's right, dear brother. All praises due to Allah. And once again, and shout out to Brother Xavier. Xavier, McFrazier. We're going to put y'all on blast. Thank y'all for hitting us up. Got a couple of new features here on Nationtown TV. Brother Hisham Collins has a good question. He says, who is Allah to the FOI, and what's the difference between FOI and the NOI? Great question. A little bit off topic, but it's such a good question, and I'm going to pause the actual topic to deal with that, because I did mention the Nation of Islam, I did mention the FOI, and what this brother is basically doing is a very intelligent thing. When you're reading something or watching something, and something is said, or you read a word, and you don't know what it means, if you keep reading or if you keep watching, then that's really essentially the same as going across the street blindfolded, because you really wasting your time. If you're reading something, you don't know what a word means, and you keep on reading, it's a waste of time. If you watch something and they say something, you don't know what they're talking about, but you keep watching, it's a waste of time. So I'm gonna deal with that real quick. Brother, Allah is God in a very ancient and aboriginal language of Arabic. Simple as that. You know, just like if you were to go, right now we're in Los Angeles, if we go a couple of hours south to Mexico, and I start talking to one of my so-called Mexican brothers about money, and I keep using the word money, unless they speak some type of English, they won't know what the hell I'm talking about until I say dinero. Then they'll say, oh, sí, dinero. They both mean money, but we're just used to the grafted, bastardized language of English, which is a very young and mixed up language that we were taught since slavery. But in Arabic, which is one of the most ancient languages, and it's a still living language, in that language we deal with Allah God. We call him in his proper name, which is Allah. Simple as that. He ain't no different God, no strange God. He ain't no, magic carpet God. He is God. And we also believe that he appeared to us in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, July 4th, 1930, the Mahdi of the Muslims and the Messiah of the Christians, if we but understood, dear brother. And as far as the FOIs, the brother actually answered the question, Brother Xavier. FOI means the fruit of Islam. That's the name given to the military training of the men who belong to Islam in North America. That's the military wing of the Nation of Islam. It's not separate from the Nation of Islam. It's actually a part of it. And, it's like the United States government. We all know that the Marines, the Army, the Navy, that's all a part of the United States government. It's funded by the United States government. It's a part of it. And they fight the wars that the United States government gets us into. But those are the factions of the military in the United States. And the FOI is the military training of the men who belong to Islam in North America. So thank you for that question, dear brother. And we're going to go ahead and keep it going. I see you got another question, or another comment, and I'm going to go ahead and put that up there as well. Let me just deal with the other one. Now is if I, as a Sunni Muslim, was interested in being part of the movement, would I be able to without changing any of my beliefs? Because I know there's a difference in the beliefs. Well, I would disagree that there is a difference. As you know, in Islam all over the world, there's something taken called a shahada. And in that shahada, you bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger, Illa la Muhammad Rasulullah. So you're basically, that's the starting point of being a Muslim. That's not the entire basis of being a Muslim, but I want to direct you to a surah and an ayat in the Holy Quran, dear brother, which is the book of the Muslims. Now, the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, that's a beautiful thing to research. But as a Muslim, we have to start and build a foundation on the Holy Quran. And what I invite you to do, I'm going to get to that ayat that I'm going to give you, but what I invite you to do It's just like, it sounds like you've already been to a masjid somewhere. You've already been around some so-called Orthodox Muslims, and that's beautiful. Go to your local Muhammad mosque for yourself and not go off of conjecture. And while there's a lot of information here on Facebook and the internet and YouTube, don't just go off of that. Go find out for yourself. That's one thing that our enemy, the Caucasian, I have to tip my hat to him. I got to give it to him. When he wants to know about something, he goes straight to it. He doesn't just sit back and go off of what the Holy Quran calls conjecture. That means that's not a pure source of information. Go find out for yourself, brother. Just go in. Ain't nobody gonna beat you over the head and make you wear a bow tie and all of that. Just go find out for yourself. Our doors are open to any Aboriginal people. Our teachings are open for everybody. You can go on YouTube. Please listen to this man over my shoulder, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And if you are, how can I put it? If you are psychologically and religiously confident, then you will listen to anyone and have no problem listening to anyone, just like you're listening to me, without being scared that they're going to convert you. If you're confident in what you stand on religiously, then you should be able to listen to anything and deal with anything. But I thank you for that question, but I got to get back on my subject. But I do want to encourage brothers and sisters who have questions here on Nation Town TV or comments. I had to deal with those questions because those are fundamental questions, and those are good questions. Really no such thing as a bad question, but those are good for someone who may be watching, who may not know what we really believe in, but I commend y'all for trying to find out for yourselves instead of continuously going off of what someone tells you. You know, just think about it. Everybody that's watching is somebody out there that don't like you. I don't care how nice of a person you are, how good you look, how smart you are, somebody don't like you. Now imagine if someone who was interested in you for whatever reason, a possible employer, someone who just wants to be your friend, if you're a male, a woman that may be interested in you, if you're a female, a man that may be interested in you, and what if they went to your enemy or somebody who already didn't like you to ask about you? What kind of information do you think they would give you? Do you think it would be a pure set of information? Do you think it would be positive? Do you think it would even be true? 9 times out of 10, it would not be. So always go and find things for yourself and deal with it. Assalamu alaikum to our dear brother, Western Regional Student Minister Abdul Malik Saeed Muhammad. He is, well, this brother over my shoulder is the father of this movement, Nation Town movement. But I would have to say that brother Student Minister Abdul Malik Saeed, he's the big homie. He's the uncle of all of this. He really planted the seed in our minds to really push, you know, the whole movement of Nation Town TV. And man, listen, if y'all in the LA area and y'all ain't heard this brother teach, y'all might know him better as Minister Tony Muhammad, but since then he's been blessed with a holy name that he is living up to and growing up to every day. And I'm enjoying every minute of watching him live up to such a beautiful and deep name. And to our brother Hashim Collins, who just hit us with that question, I want you to look up that name, Malik, not Malik, but Malik in the Holy Quran. It is a very deep name. And shout out to our beloved Western Regional Student Minister and Western Regional Representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. But moving along, we're going to go ahead and kind of throw a wrench in the game real quick here on Nation Town TV. We're going to do something that we don't really do that often here on Nation Town TV. And that is, we're going to apologize. We hardly apologize because we don't ever make mistakes on Nation Town. No, I'm just playing. But we don't do a whole lot of apologizing. We just drop the facts as we understand it, as we know it. But it's something I realized as I was getting prepared for this episode is that there's a topic that's been in the news that we have not touched at all. It's actually been in the final call. It hasn't made the cover of the final call but it's been a topic and we haven't touched it at all. And I think it's high time to deal with it. And that's the situation in Sudan. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it because we're a little short for time. We have our study group tonight out here on the West Coast, as well as the rest of the nation, but we're in a different time zone. But we're going to deal with, real quickly, Sudan. For those who are not aware, if you don't know all the details of what's going on in Sudan, definitely Google it. But it's kind of like they say, you've seen this movie before. It's the same thing that was done to Syria, the same thing that was done to Egypt, the same thing that was done to our brother Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. It's basically where a third party, and there's something called third party law. When you have an issue with another person, if you really research it, you might find out there's a third party that's really pulling the strings on both of y'all. But the master of third party law is white supremacy, particularly Western white supremacy in the United States of America. There's some meddling going on in Sudan that is caused civil unrest that has gotten bloody. It's gotten out of hand. There have been peace talks, but those peace talks have been set aside, and there's been a lot of issues going there. But what I wanted to point out, as you see this image to my right, this is General Wesley Clark. He ran for president a while back, I think in the late 90s, but he's infamous for admitting the information that you see on that image. He said that he knows for a fact, he walked into a few meetings at the Pentagon. I'm like him, dear brother. He walked into a few meetings at the Pentagon and came to the understanding that there were plans, as you see in that quote, that we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years. Those 7 countries are Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. And basically what you see there, that's a rundown of the news, the international news in the last 10 years. Because those are the countries that you've been seeing in the news, and it's the same strategy, the same play being ran over and over and over again. You remember when you used to play Tecmo Bowl and you play somebody with the Oakland Raiders and they run the same play with Bo Jackson over and over and over again? You can't never stop them. That's what it's like with America and its foreign policy, where it's divide and conquer strategy. But that's what's going on in Sudan. It's so much smoke that it's really hard to see a lot of the players and a lot of the details. We're sifting through it. Final Call is on top of the story. And I'm waiting to hear the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan deal with it directly. He's touched on it a little bit. But I just want to apologize for, Nation Town TV not at least mentioning that, because that is a major issue. And the thing that you don't see in that image, a couple of things. One, he said we're going to take out 7 countries. Now, if you just read it like that, it sounds like 7 random countries. But all 7 of those countries have something in common. They all are in the same region of the world, Northeast Africa. Don't let them call it, don't believe them when they say the Middle East. That's Northeast Africa. But also, those are all Muslim nations. All Muslim nations. And Nation Town TV, everything we do, you see that crescent moon and star. And so we absolutely represent Islam. So I want to make sure we touched on that. Our last issue, we're going to jump right into it because we are running short on time. I'm going to go back to our cover image. As you can see, our secondary story, Chris Brown versus black women. Colorism and self-hate in the year 2019. Now, for those who may not be abreast to what happened, basically, Brother Chris, that's our brother, but Brother Chris put out a song recently where he had some lyrics that were a little, I ain't gonna say little, they were definitely disrespectful. And this is what he said. This is the gist of the lyrics. And I'm gonna have to, basically he says that he only deals with This is the actual lyric. He said, "Put it right there. Only wanna F with the black bitchs with nice hair." He only wants to F with black bitchs, female dogs with nice hair. So he got dragged on Twitter. Shout out to Black Twitter. They dragged him for that, particularly because we're dealing with an R&B star, like every R&B star, really every R&B and hip hop star, and really everything in pop culture, we set the tone for it. Black people set the tone for it. And when you have an R&B, especially a male R&B star, 9 times out of 10, it's black women, everyday, hard-working, beautiful black women that makes that brother a star. And then after that, based on how popular they become with that black female support, then you get the other women falling into the equation. They buy up all the concert tickets. You see them on the videos, but it's always black women at the foundation of showing love to that artist. And that's the same thing here. So black women felt a little betrayed by that. You know, but if you look at Chris Brown and other R&B, I don't want to make it like this is just a Chris Brown thing, because I look at a lot of these R&B artists, especially recently, this is their MO. You look at their videos, what do you have? I hardly ever see a sister on a music video darker than me. Hardly ever. And then a lot of these brothers, their mamas are black as Ace of Spades. Their sisters, their aunties, but they never have a sister on their videos that look like them. You look at the women in their life, their personal lives are highly publicized. You know about everybody they dating, all their baby mamas. You got them on all the reality shows. And look at them. And in my own personal opinion, you know, I'm all about, you know, self-sufficiency, you know, looking at self. I strive to do it every day. And black people, we got to do it, because all we got is us. That's bottom line. All we got is us. And I would say to our sisters, you know, peep that MO, that modus operandi from the beginning next time. Because it's going to be another Chris Brown. Chris Brown going to fall off, and you're going to see him on Dancing with the Stars, or some little, you know, weak little, you know, reality show. But there's going to be another Chris Brown, and another one, and another one. Peep this from the beginning before they drop a song with lyrics like this. You know, check them from the beginning. That's the good thing about social media. We can check them, you know, immediately. We don't have to write remember when you had to write letters to magazines and stuff? No, we can check them on Twitter right now. Brother, you just sold 10 million albums, and it was black women that supported you from the beginning. How come all of the women on your videos a high yellow beige? You know, why don't you ever show love to us? We got to start that from the beginning, and not just wait until they drop a bomb like this on us. You know, and then the saddest thing is that when we realize that, when our sisters realize that, a lot of our sisters, because our sisters love us, man. They love us more than we deserve them to love us. So what they do is that they come into agreement with our own, you know, colorism and self-hate. The sister says, okay, well, the brothers want to see a sister with a certain grade of hair. Okay, well, I'm going to go to the beauty shop. I'm going to go to this Asian lady, and I'm going to buy this kind of weave, that kind of weave. All right, the brothers only like, you know, sisters who are certain skin tone. Okay, I'm going to put as much of this makeup. I'm going to bleach my skin. These sisters are going through a lot of changes and a lot of stress just to catch our eye. You know, and when that sister's actually going in her pocket, buying your albums, watching all your little corny shows, going to all your concerts, we got to show them more love than what we show them. You know, but and basically what he did, but something I got to touch on, and we may not get to our very last subject, and I also want to hear from a sister on this topic, but something I got to touch on. Those of you who may not know, in the Nation of Islam, we have a part of our teaching that pretty much explains, it doesn't pretty much explain, it clearly explains why our hair, the majority of black people in this world, but particularly in America, our hair is so-called kinky. People say kinky, some people say nappy. I prefer another word. Our hair is, and this is scientifically correct, our hair is strong. Not kinky, not nappy. Our hair is strong. But in our teachings, we are taught by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, of a scientist 50,000 years ago who saw something coming on the horizon that we would have to deal with as a people. And he felt like we were not strong enough to deal with that. He felt like there was a sojourn and a struggle that was coming for the Aboriginal people of this earth. And we needed to get strong. We need to know how to deal with beasts in a jungle-like environment. Sound familiar? A beast in a jungle-like environment. And the scientists, the top scientists of that day, we call them the circle of the scientists, 12 major, 12 minor, they disagreed with them. They said, nah, we good. You know, go ahead with that. We like how we look. We like, you know, it's cool, man. Chill with that. So he got upset a little bit. So he took his own family into the jungles, and they conquered the wild beasts of the jungle for years and years, hundreds, thousands of years. And the beautiful thing about God and how he works, Allah allows living creatures to adapt to their environments. So, you know, if you have children and you live in an environment, our Western Regional Student Minister Abdul Malik taught beautifully on this. He pointed out that if you live in an environment where you have to climb, and even if you have small hands, but you live in this environment every day where you have to climb trees or climb mountains, when you have children, your children will eventually start being born with bigger hands, stronger arms to pull yourself up. This is just an example I'm using. So while we were in these jungles, this is the tribe of Shabazz, while in those jungles, they got stronger in every way. They got stronger mentally, they got stronger physically, they got strong with their muscles, and that was actually reflected. That was reflected in everything that they did, including our hair. Now, so what am I getting at? So one thing I gotta touch on before we go any further, I gotta touch on how, because there was also some a little bit of a controversy where someone who calls themselves some type of scholar, I call him a YouTube scholar, they tried to criticize the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for this teaching of Shabazz that he got from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But I want to be clear that this is not saying that there's anything wrong with kinky hair. In fact, it's not that there's anything wrong with it, it's that it's something strong with it. There's something really strong about this, and it reflects that this scientist, who was not wrong, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us that he had the right idea, because we ran into a beast, didn't we? 6,000 years ago, a beast climbed out of the caves and hillsides of Europe. And he created a concrete jungle around us called America, and also Britain and other European nations. And in that jungle, we've had to learn how to survive. But I want to point out some things about the science of hair. Not just black hair, but just hair in general. Let's see if we have that. Okay, well, I'm gonna jump right into it. Basically, there are 3 layers to the human hair, and I want y'all to Google this and look this up. There are 3 layers to human hair. There's the cuticle, there's the cortex, and then there is the medulla. Now, you've heard that word before, medulla. There's the cuticle, the cortex, and the medulla. 3 levels. The deepest level is the medulla. Now, you've heard of the medulla oblongata that connects to your spine, from your brain stem down to your spine. But the medulla in your hair, each hair, first of all, the hair that's on your head is basically dead cells that's turned into something called keratin. That's why you can cut your hair. You go to the barber shop, and when that barber goes zzz, it doesn't hurt. If a sister takes her ponytail and cuts it off, it doesn't hurt. Whether it's a real ponytail or if it's weave, it doesn't hurt because it's just keratin. It's dead cells. But in these 3 layers of the human hair, you have cuticles, cortex, and sometimes medulla. Why sometimes? Because medulla is the spine of human hair. It is the spine of human hair. Just like your medulla oblongata connects to your spine, the medulla is the spine, but only certain people have a medulla layer of their hair. Who has a medulla? And I want y'all to look this up. Don't just trust your brother. Google it, because I know it's hard to trust somebody that's as dark as me. You need somebody to look more like my shirt to tell you all of this. But the medulla, medulla, is essentially the deepest layer of the hair, but only people with thick and coarse hair have a medulla. And this is essentially the spine or the bone marrow of the hair. And it holds up the cortex. So this is the spine. If something doesn't have a spine, if I say that you're spineless, what am I calling you? I'm calling you a punk. I'm saying you're weak if you're spineless. So it's only one type of person on this earth walking around with a spineless head of hair. Now, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that there was a time where our hair on our head is just like the hair on our eyebrows. It was just that straight. But if you notice about even your eyebrows is still strong strands of hair. It's just not tangled and kinky like the hair on your head. But if you took your eyebrows and brushed it against the grain, it wouldn't just blow with the wind. If somebody turned on a fan, your eyebrow hair wouldn't just flap in the wind, because it's still strong hair. It's straight though. So the aboriginal people of this earth have medulla in their hair. And the tribe of Shabazz, through their sojourn, that medulla and that cortex got even stronger, to the point where it became elasticized and it became curled and strong in order to deal with the climates of the jungle. And it was also another sign of the preparation that was coming for us out here in the western region of this world, in the western hemisphere. So I thank Allah, like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, I thank Allah for that brother scientist Shabazz for preparing us for that. So your hair, there's nothing wrong with your hair. There's something strong with your hair. So having strong hair is no different from having strong muscles. And I find it interesting. That shows how destroyed we are as a people, because anything else that operates like a white person's hair, we call it weak. If I was like stringy blonde hair, if all you had to do was tap me on the shoulder and I fell, if the wind was blowing and I was blowing with the wind, you would say, man, that brother is weak as hell. Man, he weak. Sisters would be clowning me, man, that brother's so weak. All it takes is a little wind gust and he tripping and falling. But if you see a brother who's hard to move, hard to push over, hard to go through, you say, man, that bruh's strong. You don't even say strong, S-T-R-O-N-G. You say strong, S-C-R-O-N-G. He's strong. You can't nothing get through him. When's the last time you ran a comb through a black man or a black woman's hair? It's strong. Ain't nothing getting through that. That's why the invention of the hot comb. So, dear brothers and sisters, we're going to touch on this topic furthermore. In fact, we have to do a part 2. And here's why we have to do a part 2 on this particular topic of colorism and self-hate. Because I want you all to not just hear from a man, I want you to hear from a sister. And we're running short on time, but we have to hear from the sisters on this. We're going to hear from our executive producer, Sister Shauna Joy. And I want to hear from other sisters who are watching Nation Town TV. Tune in next week, next Friday, because I want to hear the sisters' opinion on this actual topic. Because, you know, it's unfortunate what the brother said, but it was not surprising. It was not surprising. And this is an old issue that we have to deal with. It's crazy that in 2019, we still dealing with colorism and self-hate. on something that's as simple as the tone of your skin. Now, the black woman is the mother of the universe. I have a sister who is dark skinned. She married a man that's about my complexion, and she had two sons, my two nephews, 2 years apart. And they both look just like their father, except one is my complexion, and then the other one is as black as my hair. Dark, triple black dark. But the other one is my complexion. But they look just alike. And wasn't no funny business going on. They are both. You can tell if you saw their father and saw them, you know they come from the same father. But they both have two different skin tones. So it's crazy that we hate on each other. And we have this line wedged between each other on something that the Aboriginal woman automatically produces. The Aboriginal woman produces every color that exists. And we have the nerve to sit there and argue over that. Last but not least, family, as you know, we dealt with our Independence Day, dealing with the coming of Master Fard Muhammad, July 4th, 1930. And it was beautiful because we had an event that took place as well yesterday, where an actual 6.6 Richter scale earthquake shook us up a little bit. And I want to thank Master Fard Muhammad for dropping that on us. But I'm going to drop this surah real quick. We're going to get ready to get out of here, but I want you to hear from somebody before we get out, a little preview to next week. But this surah is from Surah 99 from the Holy Quran. Al-Zilzal, the shaking. Hope y'all can see that pretty well. Let me scoot up closer so I can see it. But in Al-Zilzal, the shaking, what you're dealing with here is talking about earthquakes. Then again, it's not. It's a much deeper meaning to it. Maybe in a future episode, we'll go into it just from my perspective, but I'm going to read it for you. When the earth is shaken with her shaking, and the earth brings forth her burdens, and man says, what has befallen her? On that day she will tell her news as if thy Lord had revealed to her. On that day men will come forth in sundry bodies. That's a deep word, sundry. Look up the etymology of that. That they may be shown their works. So he who does an atom's weight of good will see it, and he who does an atom's weight of evil will also see it. So that's just a little preview for those of you that were, and for those worried about us out here on the West Coast, by the grace of Allah, we are fine. It actually took place a couple hundred miles outside of Los Angeles. We did feel the aftershocks, and it was shaking up a little bit. But as far as I know, all the believers out here and the Aboriginal people are good out here on the West Coast. But we appreciate your concern. But at this time, dear brothers and sisters, what we're going to do, I'm going to give you a preview of next week, and we're going to hear from our beloved executive producer, Sister Shauna Joy, and she's going to give you a little bit of her opinion on the topic of what Chris Brown said and colorism and self-hate in 2019. Just give me a little taste.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Let me first start and greet you all with the greeting words of peace. We say it in the Arabic language of Assalamu alaikum. And I would be remiss if I did not say first, before I speak, that Master Fard Muhammad, before I speak, I'm going to open up that I bear witness that Master Fard Muhammad, who is Allah, who came in the person of man of Master Fard Muhammad, and that Elijah Muhammad is his messenger, and that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is the Son of God and Jesus in our midst today. So once again, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
And I'm not going to be very long, you all, but just to touch on the subject, let me get my little notes pulled up. Self-hate And lack of knowledge of self is a hell of a drug. And my husband really touched on some beautiful points that tie into my point when he spoke on the Shabazz and the origin of our kinky hair. You know, when Chris Brown made those statements, he made those statements absent of the knowledge that the original man before Shabazz took us into the jungle had the straight so-called good hair. But he didn't make those statements with that knowledge. He made that statement because of self-hate and lack of knowledge, and because when we glorify and celebrity worship, you know, we have to know that their minds all the time aren't aligned with the perspective of God or aligned with the perspective of what's best for us as a people. Their minds can be aligned with the people who are feeding them, clothing them, making them famous, and most of those people are whites, most of those people are satanic Jews. And look at the standard of beauty that those people put out to the world for us. And that's what our brother Chris Brown basically stated, so-called good hair, you know? So what we're getting, why we can't worship these celebrities, is what we're getting from them is not the original thought of the God, you know, or of a man who is of God and has the knowledge of God. We're getting the original thought of our satanic, devilish enemies most of the time. And that's what we saw with Chris Brown. But, you know, sisters, I want us to take some responsibility as well. Like my husband said, we need to reflect upon self. You know, one thing that we must realize is that the black woman, no nation, not even the black woman, but especially the black woman, but no nation can rise as high as its woman. That's why 70% of the work is with the woman. So when we come into a better understanding of ourselves and our role and the value of us as a woman, we would also we love the so-called good hair too. So we would not be the ones that are making this $1 trillion industry of weaves and hair care products, bleaching products that make us other than ourselves. We would not be fueling that in those type of industries. We would love ourselves in our natural state, and as we rise in knowledge and confidence and love of self and not what the enemy puts out for us, that black man is going to rise in that same love of ourself in our natural state and knowledge. So we have to take responsibility for self-love in our natural state in which God gave us, and not the state in which we're trying to reflect the standard of beauty of our enemy. And then when we come into that knowledge and we show a man, this is who I am, and I love me for me, and you don't have to love me for me, but this is what we're gonna be. A man is gonna rise up into that same thinking and worship and love, not worship, but love you for who you are. But we are allowing for this white man, this enemy, this wicked satanic devil, to mold our minds into his mind. So we worship the good hair too. You know, we like the girls with the good hair, and we want to be that, so we go and we fuel those in industries. So that's just a little bit, you guys. And I really do want to touch on this topic in more depth, but we do have a study group to get to. So I want to encourage you all, if you're not already in your study group, and you are on the West Coast, please go to your study group. Go to your local Muhammad Mosque or your local Muhammad study group, Nation of Islam study group. You can Google it. And we are having self-improvement tonight, the basis of community development. Because again, like my husband took it back to self, like I strive to bring it back to self, and us as women, nothing starts until it starts with self. Okay, so we can't raise up a nation, we can't raise up a family, we can't raise up a community until we raise up the condition of ourselves. So please, I'd like to invite everyone out this week, next week, every Friday, no matter where you are. We even have mosque in London, international. The Nation of Islam is universal. So if you're interested and you'd like to learn more about the Nation of Islam, and you are of the Aboriginal family of the earth, please just a quick Google search of your local Muhammad Mosque or your local Nation of Islam study group to find out where you can go what days and what times. Normally, the brothers meet on Mondays at 7:30. Sisters meet Saturdays for our class at 9. And throughout the week, we meet Wednesdays and Thursdays as well.
All right. That's it, dear family. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Nation Town TV, it's your brother, Brother Landon X. We got work to do. Go ahead, if you're on the West Coast, make sure you touch down for your self-improvement study guide or study group, because I don't know about you, I need self-improvement, but maybe I'm the only one, because I ain't perfect. But to all my perfect people out there, assalamu alaikum, y'all have a safe night, and go ahead and fall through Muhammad Mosque number 27, 8701 South Vermont, and hear our beloved Western Regional Student Minister, Abdul Malik Saeed Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum.